Welcome to Talaterra, a podcast about freelance educators working in natural resource fields and environmental education. Who are these educators? What do they do? Join me, and let's find out together. This is your host, Tania Marien. Hello, I launched the Talaterra podcast in January. During the past 5 months, I've had the opportunity to speak with a wonderful group of independent professionals. I've spoken with a scientific illustrator, a game designer, a teacher and lifelong birder, a food systems scholar, a relational rewilding expert, a shamanic practitioner, the founder of an after-school program, and an environmental education consultant. And even though they each have their own titles, they all have one thing in common. They are all teachers and advocates who are dedicated to nurturing relationships between people and nature. In today's episode, I'm going to take a look back at Season 1. Let's begin by taking a look at how this season's guests nurture relationships between people and nature. Consider Gretchen Halbert, whose distance learning program in scientific illustration teaches people how to be science communicators. Here's what she had to say about how her students apply what they've learned in her program.
Some have gone into teaching and are sharing this through teaching. The first student that I had is working for a nature organization in California. And she's also doing illustrations for textbook. So she and others are putting work out there that's being used for educational purposes. Another one of the graduates, her internship was at a nature center where she developed brochures and pamphlets for children about what the nature center was doing. So I think most people who go on to work in the field, just by the job, they're giving something to society. 2 interns right now are doing paleontological research. So one is doing illustrations for graduate students that are going to be published, so they're part of those papers. And another is for a research station, so it will become part of their educational material. So predominantly, their work educates. Everybody who leaves becomes another entity for spreading information.
During the show's first season, 2 things became very clear to me. The first is that the path to becoming an independent environmental educator is not a straight one. Here's what Deb Matlock, a shamanic practitioner and principal of Wild Rhythms, has to say about her journey.
I've been working in the field of environmental education for about 25 years. And in my mind, that I've been doing one job for 25 years. But if you look at my resume and my background, it looks like a whole bunch of different things. But it all points to environmental education and to connecting people to land and wildlife and creating that deeper sense of how we can live on this planet. And so I've done things from work for government organizations to nonprofits to higher education, and also a lot of independent consulting and working as a freelancer, and ultimately starting my own business as well.
Scientist turned game designer Tim Handley also shares his journey in episode 4.
I've always been curious in how things worked, and so I studied physics, and then I studied ecology, both of those helping me understand how the world works. And through that, I came to work for the National Park Service, which was a wonderful thing. It was the job I had wanted to have when I went into graduate school. And so I was a biologist. I got to go out in the field, walk around, see things, touch things, learn about them, come back, analyze the data, find patterns. In many ways, it was great.
The second thing that became clear during my conversations with educators is that the time my guests spent outdoors as children has influenced the type of work that they do. In episode 3, teacher and birder Bruce Glick tells wonderful stories about how he learned about birds from his dad.
He loved birds. He just loved them. He brought them into our yard ever since, I was a little kid. He fed birds, and they were always there. And he would talk to us about it. And in talking to us about it, he would make up stories. And he called birds by their Latin names, and we just thought they were their names. Didn't know we were learning Latin. It's just what he did. And it stayed with me my entire life, and have always loved it. And as I got older, I realized that out of my siblings, I was the one that never ran out of anything to talk to with him about anything, because we had this common love of birds.
In episode 6, environmental education consultant Sarah Johnson talks about how her family's values influence everything she does today.
My upbringing with my parents and the rest of my family is definitely a cornerstone to why I do the work I do, and the person I am today, and my values and perspectives, and my passion for the outdoors, my passion for the planet. And growing up in rural Southwest Missouri on a big tract of land surrounded by a bunch of public land next to a big lake, our family values were to get out and explore and appreciate and manage the landscape in a responsible way. I was taught about all the Leopold and Leopoldian conservation stewardship values since before I was born. And so a lot of that has been in my blood and has been infused into everything I do.
I could go on, but it's better to learn from each guest directly. I encourage you to visit the show's website to learn more. Talaterra isn't just about educators. It's also about the topics that are of interest to them. This season, we learned about intercultural competence with scholar Claudia Diaz Carrasco, who discussed how freelance educators can develop intercultural competence and how they can partner with community organizations. Claudia is a wealth of information. Before you listen to my conversation with her, I encourage you to download the transcripts for this episode. That way you can follow along and make notes in the margins instead of following along and frantically writing all of the good information that Claudia provides. My investigation is still young, and I have much to learn before I can fully explain how freelance educators work in their communities. Are you a freelance educator working in natural resource fields and environmental education? If so, I would love to speak with you. Please contact me through the show's website at talaterra.com. You can leave a voice message or a written message. I look forward to our conversation. If you are new to the show, welcome. I hope you get a chance to listen to past episodes before Season 2 gets on its way. Thank you so much for joining me today. I look forward to continuing this journey with you.